All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Channel 6 TV Community Focus. I'm Kenny Fogel, your host. Glad you could join us tonight. We've got a very special guest in the studio, and we're going to talk a little history and talk a little bit of what's going on in today's world. But first of all, I want to introduce my special guest, Mr. Charles Roberts. Charles, welcome to the show today. Appreciate you being here.
Good to be here.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that back in 1978 that we used to have county judges, and the county judges, was a little judicial business, but then they turned over to county judge executive. So for Nelson County, you were the last county judge and the first county judge executive in Nelson County. So that's history right there.
That's right.
So what was before we get into the details of it a little bit, I mean, let's talk a little bit about Charles Roberts. I mean, I read your book, and you raised up out in the Greenbrier Holy Cross area, and when you were growing up back then, did you ever think you was going to be in politics?
I had no idea. I got disgusted with the present judge, and didn't think he treated a lot of people fair. I tried to get other people to run against him. Nobody said, well, you can't beat him. He'd been in for 20 years, and he had the high education. But after I got checking around, there's a lot of people. Of course, it's when you have to find people for speeding tickets and stuff like it. It's a lower court judge is what it is. And every time you find somebody, no matter how guilty they are, they still get angry at you.
Yeah.
Usually them and the whole family as well.
Yeah.
If you're going to file every ticket away or dismiss every ticket, then you might as well get rid of the police and do away with all the road signs and everything else.
So back then, obviously, you were doing a lot of judicial stuff. Then they come out and said you had to be a lawyer. So they changed. I think the district judge was created then, or something about that time.
Yeah, well, they kept the honor on it.
So
for some reason.
So in '78, I guess you're the first county judge executive, and basically that's when you just presided over fiscal court.
It cut the workload in about half or more. Of course, I enjoyed the judicial part better than the other, really, because it's a great opportunity to help a lot of people. You dealt with all kinds of problems, especially the city of New Haven and Bardstown had a city judge. They dealt with traffic tickets in the city limits, but I dealt with all the traffic tickets and the smaller short court cases too, all over the county. And if you had a case come up was a felony charge, then you referred it on to higher court.
Well, I read your book, and I know you in several cases you had to be marriage counselor. You had people showing up at your house in the middle of the night. I mean, it's a lot more to it than a lot of people realize.
Yeah, but it was enjoyable. You've had a good feeling when you help somebody straighten their marriage out. And, had a lot of alcoholics. I got them straightened out. Many of them come back and thank me years later for doing it. But I was just kind of judge. I just went in and sat down and talked to them and talked the matter over and see what the best solution to the problem.
Law is, a lot of it is common sense and just talking things out sometime. I think we get into legal stuff now so much that we sort of forget that. I
never had but one jury case. They have a 6-man jury in a small court like that. I never had but one jury case the whole 4 years I was judge, a judicial judge. And it turned out it was a mess. The boy got caught with possession of marijuana, and the jury found him not guilty, even though the law caught him with it. But I found out about a year later that one of them on the jury, his daughter was his girlfriend. I mean, that was the only jury case I had. Most of the time we'd just go in and sit down. I remember the first case I had, a woman come in, she took out a warrant for her husband, hit her on the arm, it's all bruised and black up and down. And I thought, well, I'm going to throw the book at him. Anybody hit a woman like that with a club? So when they come in, I let the man, we went in the courtroom, the county attorney, he was out of town or somewhere, he wasn't there. And I just went ahead and thought I'd try it myself. And we sat down and he said, well, she was going to split me with an axe. And I had to hit her, keep him hit me with the axe. And I asked her, was that true? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, I think that's a case of self-defense. And if you people can't get along together, the only thing I know you just have to separate. And so I said self-defense and dismissed the case.
Yeah.
I'd never even been in the courtroom before I was elected judge.
Were you shocked when you got elected? Did you think you had a chance?
Well, a lot of people had it in for the other judges. I say
Well, he's been in a long time.
he's been in a long time. Every time you find somebody, you can make an enemy.
Yeah.
And it's the best place in the world to make a lot of enemies. I found that out right quick.
Well, and going back a little bit, I mean, you grew up, it's a pretty rough and tough life you grew up in. I mean, you went through a lot of things growing up as an old country boy. So,
Yeah, it was hard times. Right, I was born right after the Depression. Times were hard. People were poor. But we lived on my grandmother's farm. It was a good farm, and
I know my dad's talked about you and he graduated high school together. And back then, it was sort of unusual that you had people even graduate high school. I mean, most people I just dropped out much earlier than that.
Yeah, well, there wasn't too many that went to high school back there then. You had to go to school till you were 16, and then after they got 16, they quit.
Yeah, I always wondered how y'all had a basketball team. There's two of you, but later on when you did run, I know you've had a conversion in your life. I know, like you said, I've read your book, and it's pretty some of the rough and tumble times you had early in your life, and now you're. I'm not saying you weren't a religious person at the time, but today I know you go to church every day. I mean, you're very.
I go twice a day.
Twice a day, and like I said, you're quite a. Is that a conversion for you, or is that something that was there all along and you just now feel?
My wife, first baby was born, she almost died, and I started going to church praying for her, and it became a way of life, and so I just kept on. And she got better, and I kept on praying and kept on going to church, and got used to it, and I loved going to church. And later on, you could go to church twice. You could see the Blessed Sacrament twice. And so I started going 2 masses every day.
Mm-hmm. Now, your wife, you were married, how many years were y'all married? About 60 years?
63 years.
63 years. That's unusual. People don't do that anymore. Not to the same woman, anyway.
I had a wonderful wife. I was blessed. Yeah.
And how many kids do you end up?
Had 6 kids.
6 kids?
And we had 2 grand twins. A daughter moved in with us. And we practically raised those 2. They still live with my daughter and the 2 grandkids. Mm-hmm. Her and her husband separated.
Well, back then, obviously, you had a lot of issues dealing with fiscal court, and I remember some of the fiscal court meetings. You had some pretty hard-headed people on that fiscal court with you, and I know that you had some pretty rough times at times.
Yeah, they were doing a lot of things with illegal, doing business with the county, and another name. 2 of them were, and when you started stepping on toes, and you have a hard battle to fight. Mm-hmm. And one of them, he was in the agriculture business, and he had, all of them was farmers except one, and he'd give them a discount on their products, and so, and of course he had their vote that way, and he just one man practically run the whole court, and my hands were tied because he had everybody under his finger.
Well, for an honest man, it's hard to be in politics, and I'm sure back then and today and any time, and so it had to be very frustrating for you.
Yeah, couldn't believe politics was crooked and dirty. It was till I got into it.
Well, you see what's going on today. I know in the national scene. I mean, obviously there's a lot of mudslinging goes on in politics. Now, back when you were judge, who was mayor back then? Did you work very close with the mayor of Bardstown?
Mayor Wilson. No, we wasn't too good friends either.
Is that right? So back then,
he was a great friend with the other judge, and
I never did quite accept you.
He didn't accept me.
Well, did you all do a lot of joint projects back then, or did that come along later?
Well, I was supposed to serve on the zoning board and I forget what the other board, another board too, and planning and zoning, and they never would invite me or even let me know when the meetings would come. So county was putting a lot of money into both projects, and I drew some of the county money out of it, and of course that set things on fire. He threatened to fire some of his employees back during the election. One of them had a bumper sticker on his own private automobile, and he threatened to fire him. if he didn't take it off. He said, we don't want to don't want our employees to take no part in the politics.
Well, like I said, I remember some raucous times back in those days. Of course, it's raucous times all the time. I mean, the politics today, I mean, the city and county's fighting a little bit, and you got things going on. But what do you see anything getting better now, or you just see maybe the media's covering things a little bit more now than they used to, or how do you still keeping up with politics today, or is that something you don't pay a lot of attention to?
Not too much. Of course, I vote every year. I'm more interested in the state and federal elections than I am the local elections, really.
Well, are you still doing any farming? I know you had a lot of farmland for years.
No, I don't do any farming anymore.
You're out of the farm business?
I quit. I was about 70 years old. I subdivided my farm and
built your own house?
Yeah, I built a 17-room house. I'll still live in it.
Yeah, you built that by your own hands. Not too many people can say that.
It's a great place to live. It's got a big lake behind it.
So what keeps you busy during the day now? You still pretty active, or are you pretty much? I know you go to church twice a day, but
that takes about 4 hours a day. I go to church twice a day, and the rest of it, I raise a big garden. Yeah, had about 300 tomato plants. I give it to St. Vincent de Paul, friends at church, and neighbors, and so forth. I just enjoy doing it.
Well, like I said, it was different times back then. I don't think anybody from we call south of the river had ever been elected to anything really before. So it was quite a shock when here this young boy from Holy Cross and Greenbrier shows up to run Nelson County Fiscal Courts. I'm sure a lot of people back in those days was pretty shocked.
Yeah. Yeah, I go way back. I can remember when there's more horse and buggies on Main Street in Bardstown than there was automobiles.
Is that right? Now, what's the judge, how far back can you remember on county judges? I mean, as far as who was a kid judge back in the 20s and 30s? I know Wallace Brown was around for a while.
Yeah, well, Hubbard was my judge. I've got about as far back as I can remember.
Mm-hmm. So this country boy comes out and becomes a politician and leads the county for a while. Now, when you look back on it, is there anything you regret, or are you glad you did it?
Oh, yeah, it was a rewarding experience. I helped a lot of families out, a lot of marriage problems, a lot of alcoholics, got them quit drinking, and it's a lot of satisfaction to knowing you help somebody.
Is that what it's all about, politics?
Yeah. Well, no. Not necessarily.
Well, I mean, is that what it's supposed to be about, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, well, a lower court judge, of course, they now, they got to have lawyers on both sides, and most time a jury, and all that stuff. Now, they don't even have all that stuff.
Can an honest man be a politician?
Huh?
Can an honest man be a politician?
It's pretty hard to stay honest. I made a commitment that I wouldn't do anything dishonest, and I don't think I did, as long as I was in there.
Well, I've heard people, they said they disagree with you over the years on things, but I never heard anybody said you ever lied to them, or you always stood to your word, and that's why it had to mean a lot to you to know that.
Yeah, I tried to be honest with everybody and treat everybody fair. I would talk to anybody. They come in my office. It was wide open all the time. Anybody could come in anytime they wanted to and sit down and talk to me about anything. And if there's any way I could help them, well, I'd help them whether it was my job or not.
Yeah.
Called to marriage counseling and all that stuff. It really wasn't my job, but I did it anyway because I was just interested in helping people.
So you're 90 years old now. What's the secret to getting to 90 years old?
Oh, just try to live a good, clean life, I guess.
You work hard and live a clean life, and hopefully everything turns out for the best. And like I said, I see you in church every Sunday, so I know you don't. I'm always worried if I don't see you there. I know we got concerned when right before your wife passed away. You started coming by yourself, so we knew something was wrong because she was there with you every Sunday. I'm
still pretty healthy. I had a few operations, but they didn't last long. Didn't long get over it.
Farmer, private citizen, marriage counselor, and politician. You've got, like you said, I think the name of your book is Lived a Good Life. I can't remember the name of the book, what you gave me, but something similar to that. A Good Life Lived or something. But interesting book. I tell you, I sat down and read it just about a week ago, and a lot of stories in there that you're very honest in your book. I mean, you don't pull any punches. You basically tell that some things that a lot of people might not want to talk about. You didn't have any problem telling about.
What a Life, my life. That's the name of it.
Uh-huh.
By Charles Roberts. And I enjoyed writing it, and I got a good memory. I can remember things back when I was 4 years old, even that far back. I can remember when there wasn't but one bridge in Nelson County. It was an old wooden bridge down by Barton Distillery.
Uh-huh.
And you could just own an automobile. There wasn't no trucks then. People used to drive the livestock all the way to Louisville. There wasn't no trucks back there in the hall.
Was it like a cattle herd or something?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, they drive geese and turkeys too.
How long would it take to take a bunch of geese to Louisville?
But they couldn't. But they'll stay together. They're kind of like sheep.
Yeah.
But hens, chickens won't do that. They'll fly off in every direction. They could haul them in a wagon if they haul them all the way to Louisville.
Yeah. Well, that had to be interesting. I know several times you talked about going across the creek, and the creek be a little high, and you'd have a hard time getting across the creek with a horse and a buggy.
Yeah. They had the riffle. You could cross at the riffle. That's the only place you could get across.
Yeah.
Of course, that one bridge was way out of the way for us, and they had to go 10 miles out of the way to get to Bardstown. I live right across the river from Bardstown, about 5 miles south of Bardstown on Loretta Road. On the Roberts Road.
I guess the house is still there that you were raised in.
No, I think it burned down.
Did it burn down?
I haven't been out that way lately, but I heard it burned down.
Yeah. And then the road was named after your dad, Roberts Road. So it was basically named after your dad.
He's the one who got the road fixed where people go in and out. What it was, it's just an old horse and buggy road. What it was, dirt road. I can remember when most all the roads were just dirt roads.
Yeah.
Very few of them had gravel on them. Bardstown had brick streets. They had a hitching post about every 15, 20 feet down Main Street where you hitch your horse, or horse and buggy, or some people ride bareback and some people horse and buggy.
Like I said, that's a living history that a lot of us don't get the opportunity to know about. Maybe see pictures in books, and you still got that memory in your head. So that's very valuable. I think because we're losing that. So, well, Charles, I do appreciate you being here. Like I said, I think we owe it to the public to let them hear from you every now and then because, like I said, history is going to record you as the first county judge executive for Nelson County, and you can't change history, so that's one honor you'll have, and the last county judge and the first county judge executive, and a lot of people don't realize that changed in '78. It was a constitutional change. That's why they left the name judge in there, even though it's not really a judge position anymore.
Yeah. So. But of course, I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't have any choice. They passed a law that you had to be a lawyer, and I wasn't a lawyer. But they had some judge. I heard the one up in the mountain couldn't even read and write. And they said he was one of the best judges that county had ever had.
Well, yeah.
But he just used common sense.
Exactly.
What you apply common sense.
Well, we had Freeman Carruthers, like you mentioned, a city judge, and I know he was not a lawyer at the time. So
one of the hardest things I had to deal with the mental patients. You didn't how somebody had a mental problem. They bring them in. You had to hold them in jail, or sometimes you could put them in the hospital. Well, that was a terrible thing to have to do, and that's one of the hardest things that I had to deal with, I think, was the mental problems to deal with. There's quite a few of them. People have nervous breakdowns and they go off for a while.
Well, like you said, you had a lot of things to deal with because when you're dealing with alcoholics and dealing with people like that, and especially growing up around here, and I'm sure people wanted you to give them favors, and you can't do it, like you said. If you did that, the law wouldn't mean much. Yeah,
especially mental patients, they would be hold it against you from then on.
Yeah.
One day I had one when he was shooting up in there in the neighborhood, and his own brothers and sisters took out a warrant for him, and I sent him to a mental place, and they got him kind of halfway straightened out. And we had a physical court meeting. He sat there all day and just stared at me. Kind of got me uneasy. I'm not afraid of an ordinary person, but I'm a mental patient. They just like to smile at you one minute and shoot you the next.
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, he's going to pull out a gun anytime. I find at the end of the court day, I asked him, did he have anything he wanted to present to the court? And he said, and he jumped all over me. Said I sent him off, and there wasn't nothing wrong with him and all that stuff.
Well, like I said, we thank you for your service all those years. I know you spent some time in the military years ago, and spent time in county jail. Which one's the hardest to do, being a military man or a politician?
Well, it's hard to say what kind of I never was a politician. I never claimed to be, but I did enjoy the job. I'll have to say that.
Yeah. Well, the best politicians are the non-politicians. I think we've determined that. People that understand, you know, it's about people.
I wasn't interested in being a politician and never tried to be, but you had to run in a political party to win an election.
Yeah.
To get the job.
Yeah. Well, you shocked a lot of people, like I said, and there's probably a big change to the county, and I'm sure you feel like you've done some good things, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, I know I helped a lot of people. That was a good part about it.
Okay. Well, I'll be seeing you in church on Sunday. Like I said, we appreciate your service and all that you've done, and wish you all the best. All right. Well, thanks a lot. We got Charles Roberts here, the Nelson County Judge Executive, first Nelson County Judge Executive in Nelson County, and the last county judge when they made the change back in 1978. So, Charles, thank you for being here with us today. Really do appreciate it, and we look forward to many, many more years of seeing you around. All right. Thank you a lot. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back here on Channel 6 TV.